want to land on.
So if you have like a hydroplane,
No.
I don't know. You know what? This is cool. I just thought about that. So you have a hydroplane landing, freighter, hydroplane freighter landing. Are there hydroplane freighters around? I didn't see one. Like a freighter, you know, like that lands on the. I know there's like pleasure ones, right? But I haven't seen that. But I think it would be. I would say that if it takes advantage of the harbor, then it would be subject to HMF, because it uses the harbor just the same way as the ships do. But that's an interesting concept. I didn't think of that. One more thing important. Every fee has a name, right? They have a code. Like, what is the fee code for HMF? I think it's like 099, something like that. What is the fee code for HMF, for MPF? I'm sorry. Where do you find these codes? You find them in two places. So if you have a question, sometimes customs may test you on this code. This is a very easy question. It's much easier than figuring out whether it's unused merchandise drawback for substitution or for direct purposes. You go to two sources, whichever is closer. First, CBP Form 7501 instructions. Second, CAT-AIR. All right, those are the sources which list those fees, and I believe some of them are listed in your flashcards. But flashcards are not. It's not a reference. It's a memory jogging material. So, if you decide to bring flashcards and you're gonna go through them, please, at your own risk. So, remember the rule of three: not subject to duty drawback. And here's a question from the exam. This is how they asked it. Which one? This is they asked last October. They straight out asked, which of the following duties and fees is not subject to drawback? Easy question. 5-second question after you attended this lecture. You know it's A. Warehouse withdrawal? Yeah, because consumption, right? Prior disclosure? I don't know if prior disclosure is it's your original duties, right? It's a voluntary tenders. Remember I mentioned. After liquidation, yeah, final computation of duties. Internal revenue taxes, yeah. 5 seconds, guys, this is it. That means you have so much more time to spend on stuff like transaction value. Your favorite. So, this is my own methodology of thinking about it, of the refund, duty refund. So you have time requirements. There is a certain time framework which you are limited to, and we shall discuss that. Then there is a documentary requirements. You must submit certain forms which are tested. And then there is a situational, I call it situational requirement. Customs don't call it that, but for the sake of our conversation, we need to put labels on some things, right? And those situational requirements are those situations which we just talked about as our precursor to this discussion. And those are the three types which you need to be mindful of when figuring out. Because first thing you need to do is to establish what type of duty before you even talk about before you engage in a further inquiry. Part 191, remember the outline is a simplified version. It may omit information. What I do is I break it down in the easy text, right? So we have at least a chance of comprehending as much as possible, rather than doing archaic text. However, archaic text is you do not do away. You bring that CFR to exam, right? And this archaic text, there's three type of situations are addressed in subpart B for manufacturing, subpart C for unused merchandise, and subpart D for rejected merchandise. And they discuss, there is regulation, I think, is badly written because it uses reference here and there. It is confusing. So this outline, I think, presents the most simplest compilation. However, because I am faithful to the principle that CFR are dispositive, right? This is where you find them. They dealt in the subparts. Okay? So let's go back to our outline. And let's see. The parties who are the drawback claimants. So remember we talked about the players. You can be one or the other, you can be exporter, you can be destroyer, you can be third-party intermediary, you can be importer, right? But essentially it comes down to one question. Do you have a right to claim that drawback? And what gives you that right? So if you are the exporter or destroyer, if you destroy the merchandise, your stuff, right? There is no question. Yes, most of the time, yes, 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 yes. You also have the three situation requirements, and most of them say yes, right? There is some question with substitution, but most of the time it comes down to if you own this, and you are the person who uses this stuff to export, to destroy it, right? I can do whatever with my stuff. Then what I do is I claim. So you're in a way you're presumed to have a right to claim the drawback. But as you move further down down the list and become the other player, then the questions come. Are you really entitled to claim the drawback? Can you do that? You manufacture the product. Can you? Okay, you export it. Okay, no problem. But you are the agent of the buyer and seller. You're just an agent. You buy, sell stuff. Do you actually have the title to the product? So as you move down the line, more questions arise. And as you move away from exporter or destroyer who can be a claimant for the drawback, you end up with more questions. And this question comes down to the following. Have you had that product assigned to you? Do you have that right assigned to you? In other words, think of ownership to export. That's one thing. But that owner, yeah, I just exported, but I don't want to deal with that paperwork. Do you want to deal with that paperwork? You want to make some money? You're the customs broker, you're an expert. Okay, give me $5 and I'll assign you the right to claim a drawback. All of a sudden, Mr. Chin, you are the rightful drawback claimant because you have the proper document to say this right to claim the drawback has been assigned to me. This comes limited. This right comes limited only in a certain number. You usually can do that, but in some situations you can do, and you need to be mindful of those situations because they've been tested on this. And this usually comes in the context of unused merchandise drawback. In the case of unused merchandise drawback, if you substitute it, you must have possession. So mere piece of paper is not enough. You must have held possession of the product. So if you're just a player out there, you just do the papers, you file it, you claim the ownership. Constructive meaning that you never actually held the stuff, right? In your warehouse or in your own pocket, but on paper, kind of like the bank holds in the title to your car. Do they hold the keys to your car? No. Possession is yours. Can the bank claim ownership? Yeah, it's kind of constructive possession, right? They have some kind of claim until you pay off your title. So they hold the title or the lien on the title, right, to claim the lien, and you have the keys. And the deal is you pay money, and they hold the title until you pay it off. So possession in the case of unused merchandise substitution is the key. But this is the limitation. In many other cases, usually there is a two-step requirement: waiver. So one party must waive. So I exported the merchandise. I am an exporter, but I have an intermediate party. I have Sunny. Sunny is my intermediate party. Sunny, he's just a person who is who just knows the stuff. He's just knowledgeable in the laws, and I am a goofball who just buys and sells stuff. I don't want to deal with this. You know this, right? I waive my right to claim a drawback, and I assign that right to you. So, but assignment usually entails that the waiver. But customs usually they would like to know that you also waive. Assignment does not mean a waiver in itself, because in some cases you have multiple parties who can claim, right? So in a manufacturing, in fact, in manufacturing drawback, you can have many parties because you have yarn producers, you have yarn manufacturers, you have resellers, you have many parties, and the waiver is very important in this context. So waiver and assignment, unless it's a substitution, unused merchandise drawback, in which case possession is required at some point. Doesn't have to be all the time, 100%. But remember, with those shoes, actually we have an example here, which is a good example. So take a look. Last exam, guys. Last exam, this question was asked. Company ABC imported shoes from Italy. So let's put this in the context. So you have company ABC imported shoes from Italy on a certain date. Then company ABC sells the shoes to company 123 in the United States. And then company 123 exports those shoes to company. So you have things come from Italy to the United States. In the United States, they change hands. So what is it? We have 1, 2, 3 and ABC. So ABC 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3 takes it out to Germany. What's the Germany symbol? DE? Deutsch? Okay, DE. I believe it's DE. Now, so this this guy is a 1, 2, 3 export stuff out, right? So you can already know that nothing is happening to the shoes, right? They're just changing hands. So you do not have manufacturing, nor you have a rejected, right? Because shoes were well accepted. So what you have is a case of unused merchandise. And this is a direct case. There was no substitution, right? There was no one type of shoes, lot 1, substitute for lot 2. So you have this situation, direct. Next, this is the exporter 1, 2, 3. Can ABC claim the right to the drawback? Based on what I just said, yes, it can, provided that there is a waiver and there is assignment. And must there be possession? No, because there is no substitution, right? Look at this. Possession is required in the case of a substitution. But there was possession, irrespective. But there was, so even if there was substitution, at some point 1 to ABC possessed the shoes, and 1 to 3 at one point possessed the shoes, right? So it would be relevant. But If there was unused substitution, this would become relevant all of a sudden. So keep those points in mind as you go through analysis. So what's the question? What must company ABC do to obtain drawback? So we know that it can do, right? So two things: waiver. So this company, not the exporter, but this company wants to file a drawback claim. So 1 to 3 must give it a waiver and assignment, because ABC in here is not the exporter. E is the right answer in this case. Certification from exporter waiving the right to claim in drawback. In this case, it would be certification from company 1 to 3 to waive the right to drawback. They didn't add assignment, but okay. So what about certificate of delivery? Because I had a struggle with certificate of delivery. As we go into the documentation, we will be mindful that certificate of delivery is a document that does three things. It documents the transfer, it establishes what the transfer is all about, and it provides the waiver. So all those elements are met for the certificate of delivery. Let's see. I might have it here. Yeah, certificate of manufacture and delivery. I know you all have forms, so there is one more form for you to remember. 7552. This is what it looks like. I have a snippet here, and it does two things: transfer, identity, and assigns the drawback right. So the
once you have that, it's the same thing.
so why is E the right answer, not the D? Because remember, we had this. So if that was true, then what's wrong with marking this one? What's wrong? Yeah, if you think about this, that means you're already a step ahead, because it is this type of analytical framework that customs is trying to trick you in. Because if you just study certificate of delivery, which we haven't talked about in great detail, then you should like, oh, wait a minute, this certificate of delivery just knocks out all those requirements. Boom. Well, guess what? Who got the transfer from whom? Transfer was made from USABC to the US 123 in the first place. So it is that company that did it to this company, because that's the way it's done. Not the other way around. So when you do the transfer in the first place, then it really makes no sense for you to go back and do this waiver, right? Or waiver only if you going not at this step, but at this step. See? Because you're kind of going back, and you exported it, but you're giving it out. If it was ABC the exporter in the first place, then yes, it would make sense. But here, the company who had it once in possession and who was in a position to issue that certificate, because it was the original title holder, the certificate of manufacture and delivery, it was in the first place the person in position because it had ownership. Now, it doesn't need that because it could have done it in the first place. Now it wants to claim the right it kind of waived already. So what it requires is it doesn't require that document, although that may be helpful. But this is a better answer. So can you make an argument for this one? Perhaps you can, if you like put it in this fiction, right, or transaction fiction. But this is so much better because you have this first, and you have the so the certificate of delivery is done here at this level, not at this level. So that's why it's important for you when you guys show up at the exam. I don't know if I think on my examination they had this rule. They give out this books, right? And I think there was like a rule where you can't write in the books. I do not know if that rule is still around.
No,
They don't do.
you can write in a book.
You can if you want to. Okay. Well, when I took it, they said no, you can't. I said, you know, screw you. And I was drawing all these little charts because drawing helps to think this through. If you don't draw this, then you can miss this step, right? When you answer this question. And of course, just like in many questions, unless you know it, it is usually the process of elimination, right? So this is the biggest challenge. What about notice of intent to export from the exporter? No, we're talking about the right to claim drawback. Notice of intent to export, as we shall see, is usually filed by this company. It is at this stage we're talking about. It is not this stage, it is this stage. Before they export it, they need to provide notice to customs. It's the procedural documentary. Remember I said there were 3 situations, right, that we must be concerned. Timing, documentary, and situational, right? They are testing you on documentary requirement, not situational requirement. So this is not relevant. That's why you have C as an incorrect answer. This is just, it's kind of like, would you like to have lunch? No, thank you. I have my iPhone. That's the correct answer, you know. Just
I'm gonna eat my iPhone.
yeah. I mean, it's that type of inquiry. What about letter of credit? Right away, incorrect. What's letter of credit? It's a financial instrument. Do you have to have a letter of credit to get engaged in the import-export or transfer? No, you can get cash. You can use PayPal. Yeah? It's not a requirement, so this is like just jumping out. Please cross me out. Certificate of manufacture from the exporter. When is that a requirement? First of all, we know we're not dealing. The only time we're dealing with the certificate of manufacture, if we're dealing, it will be at this level. We're dealing at this level, right? So this is first. We know that this is just kind of like that iPhone answer, right? Second is we have no manufacturer here. That manufacturer took place in Italy somewhere, right? That player is not even on the horizon. That player was done when the shoes were brought to the United States. So that's not relevant. So that's why E is the right answer. Any questions before I move on? This is all about the process, folks. This is like thinking this through, and I think this is a good intellectually challenging question, which actually brings you good introduction to the methodology that you need to keep in mind when you answer this. All right, record retention period. So we already know this, right? 3 years from record keeping requirements. But here is the point. 3 years from what? From the time you file it? No, from the date you get paid. So you file. What if you don't get paid? Usually the rule, if you go back to the 163, the record keeping part, the retention period, the default retention period, it's kind of like, you know, like here, if you don't see the speeding signs, you keep it down to 30 miles per hour speed limit in New York City, right? This is a general rule unless otherwise posted. So unless otherwise posted, it's from the time you require to generate the documents. The moment you were required to generate that certificate of manufacturer delivery, that's when the record keeping rule kicks in. Unless otherwise posted. Here, 3 years after the date of payment. That's an unless otherwise posted sign. So if you don't get paid, 3 years from the date you generate those documents. Okay, so I pretty much extensively talked about all those situations, right? But to just drive the point home, I broke it down into the elements. So, because we're dealing with the elements, and so all of those elements must be met before you do it. And pretty much this breaks down whatever stuff I mentioned previously. It must be made in the, so the article you export, and we're dealing with this level, right? Manufacturing must be made in the United States. It cannot be used. So that product for British fashion house, right, cannot be sold in NYC. It must be exported or destroyed. So either or, you can burn it, but you cannot wear it. And exportation takes place within 5 years after importation. This is key. Because key in the sense, first of all, remember that 3-year requirement rule. Don't confuse that 3-year. 3-year is for you to keep papers. But to be eligible, this is an eligibility requirement. For the manufacturing, 5 years. As we shall see, it's different because in unused merchandise, it's 3 years. So this gives you a greater flexibility. And this is another reason why you should first establish NAFTA, non-NAFTA. If it's non-NAFTA, what type of situation, and then direct substitute. But here in our case, if we get here, we know it's 5 years. Within 5 years, you can do it. That's the time frame.